Today's session, we are going to do a deep dive on a very important parsha topic that comes up in the parsha of Nasso, which is peace in the house. Shalom bayis. You see, all too often, you could look at the statistics, domestic violence, terrible things happen. But not even if it leads to a physical assault of some sort, just maintaining proper peace. It's a very important concept. We learn about a sot in this week's parsha. It was a woman, and she was warned by her husband not to seclude herself with another man, and she disobeyed. She has to undergo a test. She drinks a special beverage, and that beverage will determine whether she was faithful or unfaithful to her husband. One of the ingredients of this water, this beverage, is Hashem's name is erased. It's put into the beverage, placed inside. How do we know this? It's a pasuk in Heichav Gimel. So Shinshin Pincus, Zatzal explains that the Tiferet Shimshon, don't think that erasing Hashem's name is a light, insignificant matter. It's a Torah prohibition. You're not allowed to do such a thing. It's pretty serious over here. Yeah. The Alkut Shimoni says that peace is so important that it even overrides this prohibition of erasing Hashem's name. That is certainly something to think about. Meaning, peace, friendship, unity are so important that we're commanded to erase Hashem's name in order to create potential peace. Many times, we realize how important it is to be peaceful, patient, calm, and sacrifice for others. But sometimes, when there's a quarrel of some sort and a big loss could result, people lose self-control. Or if someone insults us, we might retaliate. We have to be careful to remain calm and not get angry. Torah is teaching us that we have to have a lot of self-sacrifice in order to maintain a tranquil setting to the extent that if need be, Hashem's name will actually be erased. The Gemara in Shavuos, which, by the way, we have Shavuos coming up. The Masechta has nothing to do with the holiday of Shavuos. It has to do with oaths. Anyways, in the Gemara in Shavuos on Daf Lamed Tes, says that the entire world shook when Hashem said not to swear falsely. The whole world. The same problem applies with regards to erasing Hashem's name. Why did the entire world shake? So the Gemara in Menachos on Chav Tes quotes the pasuk that says, "Ki b'ka Hashem surah lamim." The letters Yud and Hey in Hashem's name are used to describe Hashem. Refers to the two worlds that Hashem created. Hey refers to this world. Yud refers to the next, meaning both this world and the next world were created from and because of Hashem's name. Just think about how special Hashem's name is. Hashem's name is thus the foundation of the entire world. Okay. Essentially. This is why the whole world shakes if someone belittles or erases or utters Hashem's name in vain. The fellow is almost destroying the world when he does this. This is how much we need to sacrifice in order to foster harmony. Erasing Hashem's name is still allowed, even though it's like the destruction of the world, in order to maintain the tranquility. Tremendous line. Sometimes we have to disregard our main principles in order to maintain peace. Sometimes we should even spend money in order to maintain peace. So of course, it's referring to that it doesn't transgress any halacha. And in this merit, Hashem's divine presence will dwell among us. There's an interesting Gemara that is pretty much quoted every single Shavuot Brachos. Gemara in Sot Yud Zayin. Tarash Rebbi Akiva Ish v'Isha. We'll quote the Gemara even though many already know it, and then we'll say some interesting insights that you might have never thought about or heard about or read about. But there's tremendous amount of insight on this Gemara and many different angles to look at it. The Gemara says, Darash Rebbi Akiva Ish v'ish zachu shchina b'neihem, that if a male and female, if a husband and wife merit, then the divine presence will dwell among them. Lo zachu eishal chlasim. But if they're not going to merit, then a fire will consume them. Rashi explains that the words ish and isha are identical except for the yud and the he. So if they combine and they do what they're supposed to do, Hashem will dwell among them. But if they don't, then Hashem will remove himself, right? Because Hashem will remove himself from them, and all they're going to be left with is a double ish. If you remove the yud and the hey from ish and isha respectively, then you're just left with ish. It's just going to be fire. It's not going to be good. Rashi explains.
Hmm.
One interesting point about this Gemara is that many people don't focus on a lot is who is the person who says this statement? Okay? Person who says this statement is none other than Rebbi Akiva, like we quoted. Go back a minute ago, it's Rebbi Akiva. What's the significance of Rebbi Akiva saying such a statement? We're in the closing moments now of Sfira Sa'imer, only a few days left until Zman Matan Torah. And a lot of Sfira has to do with Rebbi Akiva and his Talmidim, the 24,000 Talmidim who passed away. Mibnei Shalom Zukov, there's a lot of explanations there. But why Rebbi Akiva? What's the significance? I'd like to tie in two other Gemaras with this Gemara to provide a tremendous insight and significance behind the Rebbi Akiva saying this statement. Rebbi Akiva, we should just begin by pointing out, usually stays away from Agadata, right? There's different sections of the Torah. There's halacha. There is, those are the two main sections, halacha and Agadata. That's really how it's broken down. Okay, all the laws that come out with, and Agadata, stories, ethics, these types of concepts. So Rebbi Akiva usually is in the halacha world. Okay, how do we know this? This is from Gemara number 1. There's a very interesting Gemara in Maseches Sanhedrin on Samach Zayin Amud Beis, and the Gemara over there relates a argument regarding the second plague in Mitzrayim, the Mak of Svardeya. Frogs. Question: were they just frogs? Not. So according to Rebbe Elazar, there was one frog. Okay. And the Gemara over there then says this is actually a argument among the Tanaim. Rebbi Akiva Omer, Svardeya Achas Haisa. It was one giant frog. One giant frog. So what happened? So they said, okay, they would hit the frog and it would turn into other frogs. But over there in the Gemara over there relates that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah told Akiva. He said Akiva to Rabbi Akiva. He said Akiva, what are you talking about? Malacha etzel Haggadah. What are you doing by Haggadah? What are you coming out with statements on Haggadah over here for? Kalem medibro isecha v'leich etzel nagam v'oilos. Go back to your halacha. Go back to the Masechta that deals with nagaim and oilos. It deals with someone who has leprosy, saras, and the halachas of tum and tahara, about being pure or impure in a house, in a location, etc. Okay. So he wants to argue and say that it was multiple frogs. They made a frog sound when other frogs came. Rashi over there, if you look, explains that Rebbi Akiva is more of a halacha expert as opposed to a gadita. Everyone has specialties, even in the rabbi world, and with the greatest rabbis, and that's what he said. He said, go to the halachas of Nagam Ba'aloshim Chamurim Mehematam Achudar V'Loi Bagada. Go back to the halacha. You're sharper with that. Stay away from this. So we clearly see that Rebbi Akiva usually has nothing to do with Agartha. So why then is he saying a statement over here on Agartha? It must be that this topic was incredibly dear to Rebbi Akiva that he had to deviate from his typical path. That the topic of peace in the house is of the utmost importance to Rebbi Akiva. That not only did he study the topic, but he researched it enough that led him to this conclusion. And he thought about it enough that he came up with this beautiful Torah over here about the divine presence of Hashem dwelling among a couple that has peace. We'll come back to that idea. But first, let's quote a third Gemara about Rebbi Akiva. Get even a better understanding and significance about the statement of Rebbi Akiva as opposed to anyone else. The Gemara in Masechah Shabbos on Chafei relates an argument who is considered wealthy. Tanu Rabbanan Nezehu Ashir. And the Gemara over there provides numerous answers. That is discussion in of itself, the Gemara. But Rebbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon says you have a lot of money. That's what he says over there. But there's different opinions over there. Rebbi Akiva Oimer Kol she'ishlo isha noah b'maisim. Someone who has a good wife with good deeds, he is considered wealthy. Marshall explains that each of these answers from the different rabbis was something that they excelled in their life. It was something that they did. In other words, Rabbi Tarfon, he had the wealth. Therefore, he said, someone who is wealthy, you have to have all the servants, etc. It was all something that they excelled in, and that it was personal to them. And then they said that statement. So Rabbi Akiva is it's very appropriate for him to make this statement because he's the one who had this. He had that very good wife. And we know that his wife, Rachel, the daughter of Kalva Savua, the tremendous amount of Mesiras Nefesh from the days of Sfira now with Rebbi Akiva, all the self-sacrifice that she exemplified, that they were disowned from their billionaire father and father-in-law, Rebbi Akiva's father-in-law. Why? Because she went and married a simple shepherd, so to say. But she was ready to give of herself and provide the ultimate self-sacrifice in order that Rebbi Akiva would learn, which he successfully did for 24 years. 24 years. So Rebbi Akiva is the one who had this. And therefore, it's very fitting for Rebbi Akiva to say such a statement for about the good wife because and to say this idea on having a house that and a couple that has peace and then the divine presence of Hashem will dwell among them because Rebbi Akiva exemplified this. He practiced what he preached, so to say. Beautiful idea with Rebbi Akiva. Zilberstein makes a very interesting point. The letters Yud and Hey need to be next to each other. Okay. If they're not next to each other, they're not considered Hashem's name. That's why you can't erase these letters in any way. Separating them could be considered Hashem's name being erased. Okay. A couple that's considered like one, they're one. They're one flesh, so to say. When they have unity, it's considered as if the letters Yud and Hey from the words Ish and Isha are juxtaposed to another, even though they're actually several letters away from each other, Ish and Isha, right? But if they don't have proper peace, the letters are considered separated from one another. And it's considered as if they're already erased. Based on this, the Chamudi Yisrael explains, once a couple doesn't have peace, it's considered as if Hashem's name is already erased. And therefore, we say, okay, just physically erase it because it's already considered erased. Yeah, tremendous point over there. There's a incredible story over here in the Medrash Rabbah. There's actually another story with the Medrash Rabbah. I didn't write this over here on this. I gotta add this. I gotta find where it is. But there's a story about couple who basically they were going to get divorced. Might have been they couldn't have kids for 10 years, something like that. So they went to the rabbi, I forget which rabbi offhand. The rabbi said, just like when you got married, you had a festive meal, so too when you separate, you have a festive meal. So they had a festive meal, and the husband got very intoxicated. So the husband says, I'll tell you what, you could take whatever you want, bring it to your parents' house, and you could keep it forever. Take what before we separate, take whatever you want. So he eventually passed out, and she got people to carry him to the house. He woke up once he finally sobered up, and he said, "What's going on?" She said, "This is what I want." And then everything worked out. I think they ended up having kids eventually. Anyways, point is that, love is a very special thing. But there's another story. This story is a well-known story. I'm going to quote a lot of sources for it. You hear this also often at Shabbat Brachos. There's a lot to expound upon this. There's a very interesting Midrash Rabbah. If you want to know where it is, in many places. It's in the Vayikra Rabbah, Tes, Bamidbar Rabbah, Tes Vav, Devarim Rabbah, Vav, Tes Vav. It's Yerushalmi and Sota, Perek Aleph Halacha Dalid. Rashi and Avos quotes this in the first Perek Mishnah Yud Beis. So this gets a lot of real estate throughout Chazal, and for good reason. It's a very important story. One time there was a woman, and she enjoyed attending Rabbi Meir's shir, the great Tana Rabbi Meir. By the time she returned home, the candle that was lit was extinguished because she was away for a long time. Back then, they didn't have electricity, they had candle. Her husband asked with anger, "Where have you been?" She said, "I was at the shir." So the husband then said, "I don't want you to enter this house until you spit on Rabbi Meir's face." So she left the house to go daven. Eliyahu Hanavi then appeared to Rabbi Meir and informed him that it was because of him that she isn't allowed in her house. Eliyahu then informed Rabbi Meir where she went to daven. Rabbi Meir approached her and pretended that he was sick. And he asked her, "Please spit in my eye," according to some versions, 7 times. Because her saliva had medicinal powers. And she did so. Rabbi Meir then told her to tell her husband that he said to spit in my eyes once, and you did so 7 times. So Rabbi Meir's Talmidim asked, "Isn't this a disgrace to the Torah?" Bizayana Torah. He could have lashed his husband until he would have agreed to take back his wife, similar to what they do to a husband who doesn't want to give the get. Meir responded that my respect shouldn't be greater than Hashem's respect. If Hashem allows his name to get erased, then I certainly shouldn't care about my own respect. But seemingly, Rabbi Meir's Talmidim's claim was legitimate. Why did he feel the need to disgrace himself? Could have chosen another option, which wouldn't have required him to disgrace himself. It's a good question. So, Rabbi Eliyahu Lopian answers. And one answer, the truth of the matter is we already answered above. Right? Was in order to create peace between spouses, it's worthwhile to raise Hashem's. Well, one answer was if a couple doesn't have peace, it's considered as if Hashem's name is already erased. That's one answer. But another answer is in order to create peace between spouses, it's worthwhile to erase Hashem's name. Even if you have to erase it totally. It's preferable to erase Hashem's name in order to prevent a collapse of Shalom Bayis. And erasing Hashem's name will teach this couple how important Shalom Bayis is. And any potential for peace will be reached. Meir deduced from this that he shouldn't worry about being disgraced, even if there's another way to solve this problem by lashing the wicked husband. It's better that he should be disgraced in order to create the peace between the couple. In order to create peace, sometimes we have to forego our own honor. Even if this woman passes the test by drinking the sota water, let's go back to the sota, and still seclude herself with another man despite her husband's warning, right? True, she didn't have the prohibited relations, but she still violated her husband's warning and secluded herself with another man. Right? She obviously isn't the most God-fearing person. Her Yetzer Hara got the best of her. Hashem still wants his name to get erased, even in this scenario, in order to create peace. Something to think about over there. Moshe elaborates on this. Rashi and Shmos Kaf Ches Ches explains that Jewish women had mirrors that they would use to adorn themselves, to make themselves look nice for their husbands. These mirrors were used as donations for the Mishkan. Moshe actually didn't want to use these mirrors for the Mishkan because they were used to entice their husbands. Yeah, logically. Hashem says, no, these mirrors are dearer to me than all the other donations. Right? It's quite a statement from Hashem.
Yeah.
What's the explanation of that? It's only because of these mirrors that the women were able to have children. In fact, the sink, the kior in the Beis Hamikdash, which the Kohanim use to wash their hands, and where the water that is given to the sota comes from, is made from what?
From those mirrors.
Made from those mirrors, that's right. So the kior is used to create peace between spouses. It's most fitting that it's made from these mirrors, which were used for Shalom Bayis purposes. It's like my third time saying it today. It's kind of like a broken record, but this is a famous idea that is quoted at every single Shavuot Brachos. Well, the other one with the Gemara and Soita.
Wait, there's times that you said this time.
Yeah, L'chasan Daim Lamelech, right?
Okay.
There's a lot of famous Shavuot Brachos Torahs. This is one of them, all right? The source of this is a Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, Tazayin. Look also at the Gemara in Ksubas Yud Zayin. Another Yud Zayin, Sota, Ksubas, but Chasan Daim Lamelech means that a groom is similar to a king. So if you look at the Oitzer Satira on marriage, pages 317 to 320, they relate 18 ways, similarities between a groom and a king. Additionally, you could say Kala Domal Malka, that a bride is similar to a queen. There's obviously a lot to say about this. This concept is actually discussed in Ksubas, as we just said, Yud Zayin. Come over there relates that the king Agrifos allowed a bride to pass in front of him when they met at a split in the road. Married couple has to build their house like kings who are involved only with the most essential issues that arise. This is one explanation. This is how a new couple has to act. Only focus on the most significant matters. If it's insignificant, just forget about it. And when someone focuses on the crucial matters, you don't have time to fight when you're involved with important activities. When they do this, then they will surely live happy lives. Another explanation is if a husband wants to be treated like a king, then he has to treat his wife like a queen. Similarly, if a wife wants to be treated like a queen, she should treat her husband like a king. The pasuk in Mishlei says, "Kimayim apanim lapanim ki im leiv ha'adam la'adam." When you look at water, many times you're able to see your reflection. It's the same thing. The way that you treat someone else, you'll get treated back as well. Something important about marriage, don't have high expectations. And in life in general, if you have high expectations and then those expectations aren't met, then you're just going to get deflated. Always better to go in with low expectations. If you have high expectations, then you're not going to appreciate what's being done. It's a very interesting Gemara, another classic Gemara about Shalom Bayis. I'm not going to say famous this time. It's not as famous. Mar in Yevamos Hamad Gimel Aleph talks about that Rav's wife would bother him. Whatever he asked her to make, she would make the opposite. His wife would also bother him. Hmm? Even so, when he would find a certain item that his wife would like, he would bring it to her. So Rav asked Rebbi Akiva, what are you doing this? Your wife constantly bothers you. Right there, the Gemara over there talks about whatever he asked her to make, she would make the opposite. Right? So then you got to get smart. You got to do reverse psychology. But the point is, Rav asked Rebbi Akiva, what are you doing? Your wife is always bothering you. Rebbi Akiva says, this is the famous line. Dayenu shemegadelas benenu umatzelos usanim min achet. Is it not enough that she raises our children and saves us from sinning? It's enough. Anything else is the sprinkles, the cherry on the cake, so to say. This is what we should expect. Keep our expectations low. We'll then be able to appreciate what's being done for this. We have to talk with respect. Rav Shach once heard that a couple was separating for very foolish reasons. So Shach called the husband to him and said, do you talk to me the same way you talk to your wife? Talk to your wife the way that you talk to me. It's a good line. That's actually in the Tiferes Avos on page 16. Other places also. On Shabbos and Yontif, so well-known halacha, we discussed this many times. You have to cover the challah. Why? Because the bracha of hamotzi should come before the bracha of hagef, and you're going to say on the yayin, on the grape juice, whatever you're drinking. It's one of the reasons that the Mishnah Brew explains. Others, we learned about this in Hilchos Kiddush and Siman Reish Ayin Aleph and the Mishnah Brew and Mem Aleph. It's really from the Torah, so that the bread doesn't get humiliated. Shul Yirabas Hapas Boishta. Bread won't get embarrassed that you're saying the bracha first and the grape juice and the yayin. Right? Because halachically, the bracha of hamotzi should come first because the wheat is mentioned before wine in the pasuk in Devarim Ches Ches. The table, though, on Shabbos at the Suda, because of the significance of Kiddush, the bracha of wine comes first. But we cover the challah so that it doesn't get embarrassed by being bypassed temporarily. Does the bread really have feelings? Of course not. But Chazal instruct us to behave in a manner that conveys consideration and sensitivity to the chalos. How much more so do we have to be sensitive to humans who do have feelings? So if a husband comes in and he criticizes his wife in any way for cooking, challah is burned, whatever it is, he's missing the message of the challah. The message of the challah is do not embarrass others. If you embarrass others, you're missing the point of the challah. See also in Parshas Vayera when we talked about Hakaras HaToiv, certain plagues that require hitting the ground, Moshe didn't do it because it was saved for the ground. Big principle, even though it's an atom, it doesn't have feelings. Right? If Gustman Zatzal also, when he would pass by bushes, he would be Makir Toiv because they saved him during World War II, even though they're not the same bushes and they're not even on the same continent. There's so much to talk about Shalom Bayis. So much. So many Sfarim talk about it. Someone said all we should do all day is Shalom Bayis because that's the thing that people are interested in what no one. How many people care about the halachas of Sfira? How many people versus how many people care about practical, how to have good peace in the house, no matter what religion you are. Something that this stuff applies to everyone, right? Over here, we're trying to do a crash course synopsis on some of the important points. But this takes hours and hours of research, and the problem is that people aren't doing the research. People that get married, how long did they study the topic of how should I have a successful marriage? Right? How many people study the topic? How many people study the topic before they have kids? They just think about all the stuff they need to buy. How am I supposed to raise my children the Torah way, in an emotionally good way? What am I supposed to do? Where's this stuff? Discuss. It's scattered throughout. I'm trying to put it all together over here in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but there's a tremendous amount of this. There's one well-known story about Shalom Bayis. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he lost his wife after they were married for 54 years. Yeah. And at the end of the eulogy, he concluded by saying, even though it's customary to ask forgiveness from a deceased at the funeral, I will not do so now, because we lived many years together in total harmony without either of us ever having in the least hurt one another. Throughout our entire marriage, we never offended or hurt each other. 54 years. It's a gadol b'Yisrael. 54 years. We conducted our lives according to the Shulchan Aruch. I have nothing for which to ask my wife forgiveness. How is it possible? 54 years of marriage, you never upset your wife once? We could answer this question based on another story with Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. One time, a young man accompanied Rabbi Auerbach to his home in the Shari Chesed neighborhood on a very windy day. And he looked unkempt, and before he went to his house, he made himself look neat. And he said, is the rabbi expecting a guest? He said, no. But when I enter in my home, it's equivalent to receiving the divine presence of Hashem. And the Gemara in Sota says, if a husband, wife are worthy, Hashem's divine presence will be there. We have a good marriage, no arguments. And therefore, the divine presence of Hashem is going to be here. I'm preparing myself to greet the divine presence himself. Furthermore, a wife doesn't need to see her husband unkempt. When a man enters his home, he should be neat and orderly with a pleasant expression on his face. The 54 years of marriage, this is how he approached his wife. This is what it was. A husband who enters into his house with the attitude that he's greeting the Shekhinah, divine presence of Hashem, when he greets his wife, certainly doesn't need to ask for forgiveness from his wife after 54 years of marriage. That's a gadol b'Yisrael. When we talk about Shalom Bayis, peace in the house, we typically refer to spouses, but this also applies to siblings as well. Siblings have to be careful to get along, no matter what age. Another important lesson we could learn from this is that you never want to show your spouse a frowning or angry face. Negative emotions change a person's appearance for the worse, and it's not good. So after Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said this, a young man who was close to Rabbi Auerbach got married. Several months after the wedding, he met Rabbi Auerbach, who asked him how things were going. He said, everything's great. Our home is peaceful and calm, and we don't have any disagreements. So Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said, did you divorce your wife, or did she die? He said, no. Shocked. No, of course. Rabbi Auerbach explained, how is it possible to live with a woman without ever having disagreements? If everything is as peaceful as you said, then it's as if you're not living together. So the young man said, but the rabbi himself said that I didn't need to ask for forgiveness. He said, no, there's a big difference. Natures of men and women are totally different. Hashem created the world in a way that what one person wants, the other one doesn't necessarily want. Therefore, it's inevitable that there are going to be disagreements, but that does not mean that the couple has to fight. There's a difference between disagreeing versus fighting. If there's a disagreement, it doesn't have to become bitter. Be handled calmly and peacefully. Two people could contend And each can and should state their opinion honestly. That's no contradiction. For a husband standing over his wife's grave and saying outright that he has nothing to ask forgiveness for. Because disagreements that arose were handled peacefully, not bitterly, with each person yielding to another. This story I saw in around 5 different svarim with all of the additions that I just said.
So it was the ending of that he said what?
That he said, yeah, you could have disagreements, but it has to be handled peacefully. Mission Avos, running out of time over here. 3.5 minutes left. The Mission Avos says, be among the students of Aaron, love, peace, chase after it. Mishnah Yud Beis, first parak, see the recordings there in Avos. Rashi over there relates when Aaron would see 2 people that were quarreling with one another, he would go make peace. He would go to each one behind the back of the other person and say, the person wants to make peace with you, and he was the mediator, so to say, between the two. Because you can lie to make peace. If we have the ability to make peace between people who aren't getting along, family members, then we should definitely do so. We should act upon it. It's a huge mitzvah. A lot of times it's just quicker to just do the task, what needs to be done, rather than argue about the thing. It's a very important idea when it comes to shalom bayis in the house. Ham says it's in many places. Chesed is a nice thing to do, okay? But it can't come at the expense of one's wife. In other words, a lot of times, chesed starts at the home. In other words, you see a lot of times that people, they jump on different acts of kindness and opportunities outside the house, but inside the house, that's where it starts. And many times it's more important because when you do something outside of the house, you get honored at dinner, whatever it is that you're doing, you get recognition for it, you get some sort of honor for it. When it's in the house, when you're wiping a diaper and no one sees the thing, it's a tremendous form of kindness, right? So that's definitely something to realize. So look, there are a lot of different points that we said, a lot of wisdom and insight. Common denominator between all of it is there's a lot more to work on in the house. Always more to work on. Always more to work on. And this is the sota, raising Hashem's name. You see the importance of it. Right? I was learning with one of my chavrus, the Gemara in Makos, I think it was like Yud. Boy lemishtafei alma. Hashem wanted to destroy the whole world in the depths, and they had to maybe potentially raise Hashem's name. They weren't sure. David HaMelech wasn't sure until Achitofel came with the Kal V'chomer, concluded. Wasn't sure. You have to have a Kal V'chomer. And the Kal V'chomer is learned from the Sota. Like Hashem and the Gemara is, why do you need a Kal V'chomer? Just say you're saving the world. Hatzalas nefashos. You have to come to a Sota to learn it up. It's like a Sota, you did the whole world you could, something like that. You see the seriousness of raising Hashem's name, and still it's done by the Sota. Something to think of. Tremendous, tremendous. All right, we'll continue tomorrow.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah.